This extended the project period through September 30th, 2024. The council has fully obligated these funds and completed the work by the September 2024 deadline. So we're good to go for 2022. The council has received a total allotment of $1,501,328 for fiscal year 2023. The council has fully obligated these funds. The current obligation and project period requirements are through the end of this month, so September 30th, 2024, with the final report due by September 30th, 2025. However, a no-cost extension request for the period of performance has been submitted to ACO. However, we're still waiting on an official response to our request. We don't know if it's been granted or not, but that would allow us another year to complete the work for the fiscal year 2023 funding. Finally, the council has received 4 allotments for fiscal year 2024, bringing the current award amount to $1,497,202. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th, 2025. And there's approximately $294,562 remaining to be obligated. The final report will be due September 30th of 2026. Does anyone have any questions on this sheet? Okay, moving on to the next sheet. This shows all of our current funded projects. It has all the new projects that were voted on during the June full council meeting, as well as showing everything that ended in June. And as you can see, there was quite a few projects that had remaining budgets, so these funds needed to be redistributed. We're following up with any outstanding invoices and contracts that have ended in June. We could close out both the state and federal fiscal years. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, moving on to the final sheet. Sorry, again, this one's always pretty small. Oop, I think I overdid that there. So this sheet has been updated to reflect the projects outlined in the fiscal year 2024, 2025, and 26 work plans, as well as the funding that has already been approved in prior years. For fiscal year 2025 funds, this will primarily be for what you could see here, which is an estimate of what we're hoping to get next year. So those funds will go primarily towards 2026 work plan activities, so stuff that has yet to be voted on or completely finalized in the 26 work plan. As you can see, there's still some funds remaining to be kind of obligated or to kind of determine what we want to do in 2026. So there may be room depending on what the award amount is, which is something that we don't know, but it allows for maybe any reduction in award amounts or for some new projects to be done. Also, we're going to need to start working on our new 5-year state plan. And so this will allow some flexibility to use those funds towards that. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, Lonnie, thank you so much. Agenda item D, our executive director report with John, our world traveler.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Just wanted to touch on the fiscal year 2025 and 2026 work plans. I know we've mentioned those repeatedly over the last several meetings because we were in the process of developing those plans. They had to be submitted by August 15th, and I'm pleased to say they were in fact submitted. We do not have notification yet from ACO if the plans have been accepted, but they are very, very similar to the plans we've had over the last several years. There are no major deviations. Everything, I think, is in line with what we've been striving to achieve through our goals and objectives, and I see no reason why those plans won't be accepted by ACL. We are pleased to have them off our plates because it's a big task. All of these federal reporting issues are really labor intensive. And so work plan, the PPR, and as Lonnie mentioned, the upcoming new 5-year plan, all of these are real consumers of our time. So we're pleased to have that one out of the way, or those two out of the way, and look forward to letting you know when we receive approval for those work plans. I also wanted to touch really briefly on the no-cost extension that Lonnie mentioned. She is correct. We don't have word yet whether we've been approved for that no-cost extension. What I do know as of yesterday is that I did receive some kind of communication from Jack Brandt, our contact at ACL, while I was out of town on vacation. And for those who don't know, I was gone for 3 weeks, out of the country. And when I tried to access my email account, DTS, our tech services people, shut down my email because apparently we're not allowed to use our stuff internationally. I didn't know that. Anyway, my account got suspended, so I had no access to the messages that came into me. But what I do know as of yesterday is that I did receive some kind of communication from Jack at ACL about our no-cost extension. I just don't know what the substance of that message is. So I need to follow up with him and find out whether he was just acknowledging that he got our request or whether he was approving the request. I'll try to find that out today if possible and be able to give an update so we know where things stand for next week's full council meeting. Many of you may have seen, I hope all of you saw an email come out from us back in mid-August related to a community survey we are conducting. Sarah is the lead on that project. It's been a long time coming. We put a lot of thought into it, and I'm hopeful that it is going to demonstrate to us what the community thinks about what the council does, provide some recommendations to us, provide some suggestions, and maybe even more importantly, help us identify key issues that we should be addressing moving forward. I will tell you that we haven't gotten quite the response rate that we were hoping for. We're at just over maybe 1.5% in response to the survey. Sarah just posted the link to it. If any of you would be willing to push that out on our behalf, we would certainly appreciate that. We ran into another tech issue not long after the survey went out. Our subscription to our bulk email service expired, and rather than contact us to get the renewal in place, the procurement office just let it expire and didn't take action on it. So we learned, I guess, a couple of days ago, a week ago, that that the subscription was expired and we weren't able to do any additional pushes on that survey. So we're dealing with all of that. It's getting all reestablished, and so we're going to keep the survey open a little bit longer than we anticipated. But by the end of September, we will have closed it. We will have our results, and we'll be able to report on that back to the council at the November meeting. Again, I'm hopeful that it's going to provide us with some good information from the community, but we want a significantly higher response rate than we've gotten so far. So we're going to keep it open a little bit longer. Once again, if you are willing and able to share that link with your constituents, with your community, with your family, whomever, we really appreciate it. We'd like to get more response than we've gotten so far. There is, we do need to present to you the, the administrative budget for fiscal year 2025. This does require a vote of the council at next week's council meeting. I want to present it to all of you today to get your input on it. A few things probably require some explanation. One is that we don't do an extraordinarily detailed budget because many of the functions that we undertake are handled, or many of the functions for the work we undertake are handled by our procurement office or by other areas within DES. You know, they're our designated state agency. So our budget really focuses on sort of top level items. We presented the budget last year. You all approved it last year. So this is really, in many ways, just a redo of last year. Some of the numbers have changed because our allocation has changed, but in large part, it is the same. You can see that we anticipate $1,497,202 as our federal allocation for the year. You can see what we anticipate for our grants and project budget. One thing I do want to note is that within we have a line for personnel services. It is nowhere near the overall salary cost for the staff, because much of the salary money is built into those grants or built into other project related activities. So it isn't a straight item on the budget. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm explaining it very well, but salaries are allocated across several areas, and so they don't just show up on the personnel services line. You can see that we anticipate having some outside contracting under professional outside services. Travel, of course, is a component of what we do, to attend conferences, to attend various different events around the country and around the state. We are not permitted to make capital expenses. Any purchases for equipment or otherwise, those have to be done through DES. So all of our equipment actually belongs to DES. It doesn't really belong to us. And then you can see under the goals of projects, similar to what Lonnie addressed in her report, we have designated certain amounts for those different project areas, and we anticipate that those will be relatively accurate, although there may be some flexibility as the year goes on. In any case, I'm happy to answer any questions, or perhaps more appropriately, maybe Lonnie could answer any questions that you have related to this document. Unless you see areas of concern, this is the document we'll present for full council approval next week. But certainly, if you have questions, please feel free to pose them.
I just have one small question, and maybe this is obvious to everybody else, but the column that says difference with the numbers in brackets, is that underfunded, overfunded? What does that mean?
What's in bracket shows that we kind of overspent what was originally budgeted for in 2024. So there's the budget column for 2024, the actuals and the difference. So we kind of underspent in personnel and ERE, and overspent in travel especially. But again, that was a little bit of a crapshoot because we hadn't traveled in the previous few years because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't know exactly how much travel would be required and what would be needed. So moving forward to the 2025 budget, we kind of increased the travel allotment there. And for the professional and outside services, again, we're going to start working on the 5-year state plan. And so that's going to require probably some additional work from outside consultants to help us pull that all together. And I just want to mention as well, this isn't ever going to truly reconcile with the other sheets, because in any federal fiscal year, we're pulling from 3 different grant awards. So it's kind of a combination of, the 3 grant award years that was presented earlier, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does. Thank you, Lonnie.
And also the professional and outside services may end up being significantly more than what's currently in there, but what will probably hit next year isn't the full amount for the 5-year state planning process, if that makes sense.
Yes, but we're okay though. Otherwise, money-wise, I mean, does it all kind of even out in the end?
Yes, and kind of showing in the previous sheet where there was a bit of a surplus for anticipated. What you're seeing here is federal fiscal year 2025. The previous sheet, the 2025 grant award, that will come hopefully early November, depending on continuing resolution and government funding as a whole. But there's money there that can be used in 2026, which is where I think the bulk of the 5-year planning will happen. So there's money to be used. We're not in a place to where we need to make cuts or rearrange anything at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you so very much. No more questions from me.
I have a couple. This is JJ. So, Lonnie, I heard, and I think John might have mentioned the continuing resolution, just so that we receive obviously kind of similar funding the way a CR, at least what I'm hearing, and maybe y'all are hearing different. And then guess it's a two-part question. I'm hearing partial funding like to November, and then, you know, maybe another CR, continuing resolution for a longer period of time. One question is that what you're hearing? I'm hearing level funding related to that. And then does the council receive increments based on that amount of time? So if they do a continuing resolution or passing of a budget for a short term, do you guys just get a portion of the total award amount based on that, whatever passes? Is that how the council receives funding?
Yes.
Oh,
And
okay.
generally,
that
our,
has, go ahead,
sorry.
Lonnie.
Generally, our first award is received sometime in November. And it generally tends to be for around $250,000. And that's just to keep things up and running until they can finalize what things are going to be. And as we've seen historically, and especially last year, it does take quite a while for them to kind of land on what the final budget is going to be. And so, yeah, hopefully there will be fewer continuing resolutions and they will agree to a budget earlier this year.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, it's good to have dreams. It's always good to have dreams. The latest word that I'm hearing from NACDD is that they expect a continuing resolution. I think if you've been reading the headlines lately, we know that Congress is still some distance from agreeing to a budget that they'll send to the president. So, you know, we expect the pattern of recent years to continue with a series of award letters, culminating, I guess, in our full award sometime next year. But, you know, fingers crossed that isn't the case. Maybe something miraculous will happen. But we generally operate on that sort of partial grant system. You know, we get a series of award letters.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason I ask is just so that I'm that's the same way that our funding comes in. We've heard some extreme ideas out there of how to fund based on or post-election, but what seems to happen or what's going to happen is probably this 3 or 4 CRs or continuing resolutions. And so anyways, that's the one question. And then Lonnie, you had mentioned on the outside consultant that this is not the whole amount. So just a question of how you come up with the estimate of the 36. Is it 852 if my eyes were clear?
Because again, it takes a while for us to figure out who will do the work and what amount. So again, we haven't identified yet who's going to be doing the work. And so that takes quite a bit of time. And, you know, the amount of funding that we're going to put towards the entire 5-year state plan hasn't really been identified yet. So I can't give you that. Sorry. Everything's really preliminary at this point. So, you know, hopefully within the next 6 months, we'll have at least a contract in place to start the work. And then, you know, this is just the beginning chunk of what will probably be a 18-month, 2-year project.
Okay.
So
yeah,
so
no, I
it's
appreciate that.
estimate at this point, JJ. It's not, this is what it's going to be, but this is probably a good idea. And again, this is an ever-moving target. As you can see, many grant awards don't fully spend what they're given. And so I'm constantly shifting funds. It hasn't been a problem to date, but it does allow us the flexibility to work within the constraints that we're given, if that helps.
It does. Thank you. No, I just wanted to make sure if we saw a big difference down the road that folks would just remember that we had this discussion. So if it turns out to be 50 and then we see a bracketed 14,000, folks can remember the conversation. Obviously, our minutes that this is an estimate and it probably is going to go up from here.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you, JJ.
Any other questions related to the budget or the proposed budget, I should say? It probably doesn't need mentioning, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Lonnie is extraordinarily good at managing what is a very complex process of having to juggle 3 different years of funding. As she mentioned, sometimes having to backfill money, trying to find ways to spend money that others but grantees didn't fully expend on their grants. I really cannot praise her highly enough for making sense of this information to somebody who has a a minimally competent financial mind. And so thank you very much, Lonnie, for putting all this together, and of course for the management of the other fiscal reports as well. It's really really exceptional, and appreciate all the work.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Barring any other questions, this is the budget we will present to the council for its vote next week. It is on the agenda, the draft agenda for next week. And so we'll talk about, I mean, we'll show you the draft agenda a little bit later in this meeting, but we will go ahead and present this next week. And then the last item on my report is the proposed meeting dates for federal fiscal year 2025. This was part of the packet that was sent out, so you can see we would continue, if you're all in agreement with this, we would continue to hold our executive committee meetings on the Friday before our full council meetings. And full council, we would start in November of this year. Of course, our fiscal year runs October 1st through September 30th. So we would start with November 15th and November 22nd for the full council meeting, January 17th and January 26th, April 18th and April 25th, June 20th and June 27th, and then September 19th and September 26th. Now, I did my best to try and make sure we weren't conflicting with other events or holidays or anything like that. I won't claim to be perfect. And JJ, I have to admit, I do not know when the African American Conference is taking place next year. If it was similar to this year, we may have a conflict with June 27th. I hope that's not the case, but or even June 20th. But maybe you could enlighten us.
I will. Let me look that up because I don't have it to memory, but we have selected a day. So let me look in the calendar.
Okay. Okay. If
John,
anyone else sees the conflict, yeah, go ahead,
I
John. Sorry.
believe the IHD conference is around that time too. I will check right now and get you the specific dates.
Okay. Does anyone else see a conflict of any sort with the dates that are being proposed?
Still looking.
Me too.
Yes.
We haven't signed a contract yet, so I know it's not firm, but it probably is it might be one of those days. It may be a week earlier actually this year, if I'm remembering, but Ronaldo's in DC, so we'll see if he responds to my text right now.
Okay. Well, we do have time if this proposed schedule needs to be amended before it's sent out to the council as a whole. We can certainly make changes. Yes, Melissa?
I do. I'm actually looking at Friday, January 26th, and unless my calendar's broken, the 26th is a Sunday. That should be the 24th, I believe.
Well,
Everybody
that's
else,
true.
I saw the
Yeah,
same
that's-
thing.
I'm
Okay.
like, because maybe it's just me. So,
No. My math is right. I told you I'm minimally competent financial mind.
thank God we have Lonnie, right?
Yeah. All right. I will make that correction to January 24th.
Okay, just double checking the last.
Well, JJ and Kelly, rather than take more time with this
Yeah.
now, if you do find that either of those dates or any of these dates is a conflict, please just let me know. We'll make the appropriate adjustment. Maybe we might have to move the move the date by a day or two, but we'll try to find something that will accommodate everybody's schedule.
The 20th of
and-
June is okay, and I think the rest are for me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go
So
ahead,
JJ,
John.
if you
That's
can
fine.
just get back to me. Yeah. Thank you.
No
I
problem.
appreciate that. And we'll, if you could let me know by Monday, that would be great, because we'll be sending the materials out Monday or
Sounds-
early Tuesday.
Got it.
Okay. So that, that concludes my report. And if you have any questions, oh, no, it doesn't. I did want to mention that starting next year, we are planning to go to hybrid meetings. And Melissa and I have discussed this. The staff are fully in support of it. We we want to give people an opportunity to come back to the council office, excuse me, and interact with one another. We realize that that's not going to be possible for everyone to do. Some people may have travel or other conflicts, but as has been the case in the past, for those who do want to come in from out of town, we do provide reimbursement for travel, and we really, we believe that it will be healthy for the council. It will provide greater opportunities for interaction. It will just be a good thing if we can start getting people back together, and at the same time, we will offer the online option for anybody who isn't able to come into the office for these meetings. We finally have our technology working well. Thanks again to Lonnie, who spearheaded that. So we will make sure that that is clear to the council members from the get-go, and we will work with them, work with anyone on the council who has to travel to provide them whatever they need, and help make sure that they are reimbursed for their travel costs. So that will start in November, and hopefully we won't have any more pandemics in our lifetime, and we won't have to. We will be able to keep that pattern going.
So John,
that's
the
it
dates are
for me.
good by us. Sorry for cutting you out there. So June 13th is our conference for 2025. So we're good.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Thanks very much. Sorry to take so long. Appreciate your interest. And if you have any questions, I'm always available to answer.
No problem. Thank you, John, very much. I'm a little excited about going back to hybrids or in person or something lovely, right? So.
Oh, yes. Oh, and I'm sorry. I did want to mention one last thing. For the November meeting, we are planning to host an open house following the November council meeting. We will be reaching out to the community to invite folks who perhaps have never been to the council office, perhaps haven't been here in a long time, try and bring people back into the fold, offer an opportunity for them to come and see what we're doing these days. We have a whole range of new materials available, and I think some exciting new programs that we're supporting. So we want to use that initial meeting of November as an opportunity not only to bring the council together, but to also bring the community into the office following that meeting. And for those who are on the council and are able to stick around after the meeting for a while, we will have refreshments and so forth, and you'll have an opportunity to interact with other folks from provider agencies or from advocacy organizations or from wherever. So more information on that will be shared with you soon.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to that. I'll make a point of sticking around later. Okay, I'm sure you caught this, Marcy, but Jason joined us at 9:11 a.m.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Okay, and Kelly, 1 second, just posted something about, okay. The IHD conference is June 23rd to 24th with pre-conference on June 22nd, 2025. See you there. Thank you, Kelly. Good to know. Okay, moving on to okay. And Bijette did have a question. Is there an opportunity for mileage reimbursement if I can come to a meeting? I'd love to come, but I'd have to come the night before since I'm about 3.5 hours away. True, you'd be leaving the night before to make it 10 a.m. Maybe. Okay, mileage reimbursement?
The short answer is yes. Lonnie and Marcy are much better versed in this than I am, since we haven't had any in-person meetings since I've been here, but they can provide you all the information you need.
Yes, you are. And I think actually what we need to do before the full meeting, if folks are coming in, is Lonnie needs to check and make sure that they're in the system to be reimbursed. So there is a form, there's a process. So we'll do outreach to those council members that are outside of Maricopa County just to make sure that we can smoothly make sure you're in the state system to be processed for any sort of reimbursement. But yes, we could cover overnight mileage and hotel if necessary. So I think that's a great thing to do, is just to check in before the first meeting to make sure we've got all that worked out.
Okay, great. Thumbs up and celebration emojis. I think that's wonderful. Okay, I'm hoping we get lots of people that aren't close by. There's so many of us that have never even met in person before, so that would be terrific.
It's crazy to think about that.
Yeah, I know. It's very strange. Okay, if there's no more comments, we're going to move on to agenda item E, our grants and contracts with Lonnie and Marcy. And I'm curious to hear what you guys came up with on what your recommendations are on these. So, all right, take it away, ladies.
Okay, I'll just pitch in because we're short on time. So we did have a meeting with the grants committee a week ago. Monica chaired it, and we had a couple of council members. They did not vote on any of the proposals submitted that are in front of you today from the Sonoran Center, because at the time we were still finalizing some budget concerns or questions that we still had with JC, and we actually needed to speak to John about a couple of the items. So once he came back, we were able to kind of finalize some things. Oh no. Okay, so Kelly's going to restart. So we worked that out, and what you have in front of you now are final proposals from the Sonoran Center. It is the JC show, so she will be available next week to answer specific questions from the full council, but I will do my best to provide a summary on each of these. So the first one up, if someone could bring up the crisis response and trauma-informed care proposal. What we did provide for the committee is a summary plus their full proposal. And if you guys had a chance to read that, the Sonoran Center did a really good job on all three of them. So let me give some background information as this information comes up, whoever is going to handle that. The crisis response and trauma-informed care, this is kind of going back to the work plan and from the beginning of 2021 through 24, is that it was under the safety goal as two separate activities that we talked about many times with John as we met to figure out how is this going to take place, who are we funding to do this. They were each kind of separated for $50,000. Erica wanted work around these activities when the work plan was developed many, 3-4 years ago. And at the time, we were trying to figure out how to, we were trying to figure out how to meet with different folks in the partnerships. What are they doing around this? And because we're running very close to the end of this 5-year plan without showing work has been conducted in this area, we would really be in trouble from ACL. So the discussion that staff had, is that we were going to combine these two activities in that work plan under the safety goal. And basically, because we were not able to really kind of put out a solicitation in such a short amount of time, we had to submit the updated for 2025 in August. And when we met in May and June, there was no time to do a solicitation around this. We pitched the idea to JC, and she took us back along with reviewing the report from Noble Predictive Insights that you guys did around behavioral health findings, behavioral health crisis response, as well as a report from 2022 on Arizona's crisis response in people who have IDD. She pitched some ideas back to us in a very brief summary. We reviewed it. We said, yes, go ahead and move forward on what you plan to do for at least 1 year to ensure that we can move forward on these two activities, and then obviously report on it at the end of the reporting year, and then see how that fares out in the first year, if it would move forward in the second year, depending on their performance and their outcomes. But I hope that kind of makes sense. I mean, it really was a struggle to kind of figure out initially in the first couple of years how the council was going to move forward on this. And so what you have in front of you is her proposal for $100,000. So it's combining the two activities of $50,000 each. The first year is broken down to two activities to kind of begin the understanding of this. So she's gonna develop, staff, Sonoran Center is gonna develop curricula around trauma-informed care. And how they plan on doing that first is they need to do a literature review and then understanding the needs and an inventory and assessment by doing the survey. They're going to distribute that assessment and then report on it to develop it. They also plan to conduct 10 individual interviews with organizations and interviews, so they have more of a comprehensive outlook to develop this training materials, and then that will be the basis to develop the trauma-informed care curricula. Then they plan to pilot it, which I think is really important to do if you're presenting something new, a new topic, and you're providing a training. You want to at least pilot it so that you are assessing it at the same time to make changes. So they're going to do this part of it first. The second is going to be an outreach and dissemination that includes identifying and creating a list of Institutes of Higher Education, so IHE courses and educational opportunities for students to include content in the trauma crisis response for people with IDD. And then develop and share 2 stories from the community, the IDD community, regarding access to behavioral health and crisis-related care. And then continue to do training. So develop workshops for individuals with IDD and their families on how to access behavioral health services, how to create a crisis support through legal options, and then develop a workshop, probably most likely online, which is the easiest way, and identify that community event. So they may be pitching something to IHD and JJ or other folks down the road to present a workshop. So first 2 years kind of set the foundational aspect of it. The proposal did include a list of the staff and the budget. As I said, we worked out those kind of things that we needed to finalize their budget. And then if this runs through smoothly, they complete these activities as JC has laid out. They did provide an outline of what they would be doing in their second year. So they would refine their curricula and develop expanded modules for specific audiences, such as educators, law enforcement, first responders, and behavioral health crisis lines. So they're going to further push this out, focus on the crisis needs of the IDD community, trauma-informed care, and de-escalation and referral systems. They'll still continue to evaluate the training and the curricula, which is very necessary to do. And they're pushing this out to other target groups. Develop a crisis care guide with behavioral health crisis centers, programs, and providers. Create an online map of providers using ArcGIS. Share stories. So, that's basically how we're going to propose, or at least for the council to consider meeting those 2 activities in our work plan, is with this proposal by Sonoran Center. Thoughts, questions?
Just, final consent from the committee overall. I know that they needed clarifications, and then, staff thoughts and recommendations on this grant. So how did the committee overall, were they in favor of this?
Lonnie, I'll pitch this back to you. I believe they were fine. I don't think there were any clarifications that the grants committee had. I didn't take anything back to JC other than we told them that we had to finalize some of the budget. And here's the thing with the budget. I don't want to get into the weeds, but many of our proposals ask for stipends when you're interviewing and want lived experiences and feedback from individuals with IDD to participate in these types of projects that we fund, which is really important. And we understand the importance of providing some sort of gift card. We have allowed and do offer gift cards in our proposals. We are seeking clarification from ACL on the process and the allowability of it. And so that was really what we needed to go back and speak to John and get that further clarified. So part of John's discussion with Jack Brandt down the road when they do connect is to kind of get something in writing from ACL. We have something in writing from ITAC, our technical assistance folks, which is convoluted is the best way to say.
No.
So there is a yes, but, and the but is like, oh my God, you would not believe what they have to do in order to be accountable for a $25 gift card. So we're trying to figure out a process, basically, to be short and concise.
Okay.
So that's really what stems around JC's proposals. It wasn't really anything else. But I believe they understood that they were not going to vote on these until we finalize this.
Okay, okay, but you do need to vote on each one of these today
Yes.
in order to move forward. Okay. I don't, if that was kind of all there is, I have no issues with it and I would support this. Does anybody else have any questions or comments before we vote? Because we're going to vote on these one by one.
Yes, that is correct.
No other comments or questions? Okay. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the Crisis Response and Trauma-Informed Care from the University of Arizona Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities in the amount of $100,000. Do I have a motion, please?
This is Vijette. I'll second it. Go for it.
Sorry, it's Jana. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Jana was our first, and Vijette, you seconded that. Okay. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone abstaining? Okay, motion carries. On to number 2.
Okay, so the second one is, I believe on the agenda, the new solicitation under the competitive grant for collaborative approach to better respond to sexual violence of individuals with IDD. So this was a competitive grant that was released earlier this spring, out for 6 weeks. And the background really around this is obviously since the Hacienda incident happened several years ago, when Erica was here, she did want to form some sort of collaboration, which many of you guys are probably have been participating on. And we did move that to a grant with the ARC of Arizona, who had a grant to work around a collaborative with a collaborative group to address the issue of systemic changes and protection of people with IDD. That contract ended because primarily some of the key players left, and the performance of it was really kind of, in my opinion, was a little bit stagnant. It wasn't really achieving much. They were meeting, they were creating resources, they created, I think, some training curricula, but it was kind of stalled. And I think they needed, we needed to figure out how to move this forward. So the council was informed of it. We kind of reassessed the scope of work around this project. So around the solicitation, it was really built around a systems change approach more than let's develop resources and training. Let's look at a systems approach of it. And so when we developed this in the office, we wanted to address 4 key areas. And at the same time, Dr. Lynn Tomaso's report was being finalized. Yay. And so that was the basis of used to create this solicitation. So they had to obviously read it, use this report, but we identified 4 key areas that we wanted proposals to address in their methodology. And one of them is obviously you do have to create a committee if you're going to do any further work around this. So identify how they would go about creating a committee, members, organizations they would invite to participate, and how they would be participating in this campaign or creating this campaign awareness. The second was to review those existing resources and training materials that have already been developed, and I believe is on ACES DVs and the ARCs, and I believe probably on our website we have much of that information. So really do a comprehensive review of what's been developed to date, see what's missing, what needs to be updated, and then ensure that it's adapted for the target population and for that it's culturally accessible and in plain language. So we really wanted them to take a holistic review of what's been done to date in terms of resources. And then the 2 things that are systems, which was really important for the applicant to identify, was at least 2 policies that need to be developed that are new and or enhanced to support individuals with IDD that have been victims of sexual violence. The policies had to address the impacts on victims and survivor families. So Lynn's report identified many different policies and areas for enhancements. So that was also something that they could have gone back to and reviewed. And then the fourth was a little bit of, we have to be careful here about how people engage, you know, not lobby, but engage with policymakers and elected officials, that they can begin to propose new policy changes that would strengthen existing laws and for the prevention of abuse and neglect, proper reporting, investigating allegations of sexual violence. And it's not that legislation need to be enacted, because we know it takes sometimes many years to get legislation enacted. As we know, with support decision making, it took many, like 5 years. But you have to, the group can educate policymakers. The group can go out and identify, you know, areas for legislators to understand this particular unique need for our IDD community, and begin to understand what are the gaps in legislation that they can do to move agencies further in this cause further to protect. So that was the 4 key activities. We did receive 3 proposals. They were evaluated by an outside committee. The proposals came from the Sonoran Center, Community Options, and ACES-TV. The amount available was $75,000, and 1 applicant was going to be selected, and the outside group selected the Sonoran Center. So their proposal is attached, but what the Sonoran Center plans to do in meeting these is, they did identify a 26-member committee. They identified organizations, many of the members, key names were listed. And so they were also going to identify subcommittees, and their staff were going to be the key liaisons to ensure that there's feedback and accountability for that information that comes out of these committees. One of the things that the outside committee really appreciated from the Sonoran Center is that they wanted to ensure that the members demonstrated experience or commitment to disability advocacy and or sexual violence risk reduction, that their professional or personal background is relevant to the work that's going to be undertaken by them, lived experience from victims and survivors of abuse, exploitation, neglect. So you obviously is very key important to make sure that they participate on this. And then the ability to contribute time and resources to committee activities. They are going to meet monthly over Zoom. So they're not meeting quarterly. They're not going to lag. They're going to be pretty aggressive in this committee overview. So that was good. And then some of the tasks of their responsibilities include a campaign development, obviously reviewing and creating new materials, community engagement and partnerships, organizing events and activities to share information, and then evaluating. So continually do the loop and bringing feedback from the committee to how the work is progressing. So that was the first part that they were able to address successfully. The second, again, talked about the resources. Sonoran Youth said it's going to maintain the resources in the centralized online repository hosted on their website. That's going to be easily navigable and searchable. They plan to incorporate user feedback through online surveys, feedback forms at events, and focus groups and direct outreach from stakeholders. And then anything that is new is going to be developed in plain language, make sure that it's culturally appropriate and understandable. They're going to conduct focus groups with target audiences to ensure that the materials are clear and culturally appropriate before finalizing anything. And then obviously create resources in Spanish as well. So they're going to move forward on reviewing what's been done to date, and then taking it further. The third objective in their proposal was around the 2 policies to identify. They identified mandatory and optional training for DD vendors and staff, support coordinators, and IOC committee members and community organizations. And then the second policy that they wanted to work on was access and DDD incident flowchart assessment. Their proposal included a flowchart assessment. I made no sense in understanding what the heck access and DDD does. So if they could do anything to impact that, that would be great. So the committee obviously is going to have a key input into these 2 policies. I think it's going to be really important that they have the right members to help start making changes in the agency that have these concerns that they've identified. They said they were chosen because they represent significant processes that the systems use to measure performance. The impact and outcomes for individuals served may not clearly be defined, and the community may not fully understand where the gaps and improvements can be made. So, we'll hope for that. That's a good outcome and review from the committee on these two policies. The fourth objective, in terms of engaging with policymakers, as our funding is prohibited from using that, and obviously the Sonoran Center falling under the state, they also understand that their primary role would be to lean on their partners and the DD network and other organizations that can, if need be, lobby. They will not lobby. They will provide information. They will ensure that information is available to those folks that need to have the information. So their legislators, all other policy advocates, other groups that need information, they will provide that through researching and information to those groups who want to and need to perhaps a little bit more education with the legislature. So instead of doing it themselves, which ACES-TV, in the terms of their proposal, identified many of the same folks on their committee, had a clause in their objective for working with a lobbyist group and then another consultant. And we would have to go back and raise some changes in their proposal. So Noreen, you said will provide information and lean on partnerships to help educate policymakers and make sure they have the information they need on how the group is going to proceed in that area. And then the fifth objective is to ensure, this was new, this was not part of the solicitation, but they added this component in their proposal, is that they wanted to ensure expansion and training to students. So they really see this as those students going through medical school, understand the behavioral health, public health policy. The universities are training future students in behavioral health and public health policy, understand integrating sexual violence and IDD into existing curriculum. So, they're going to plan on pushing this further into the university for students to engage with and to understand as they move forward in their careers. That is pretty much it from my review of it. Again, we clarified their budget. We clarified some of the things that the committee wanted. That's my overview.
Okay. Same questions as last time.
Yeah.
Overall, yeah. Staff.
So the questions, there were no significant questions from the grants committee. The review committee, we proposed 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 4 minor questions, and it was, again, as I stated, around making sure they understood they couldn't lobby, provide a clarification on their timeline, which they did. Wanted to ensure that they were going to have standing committees or ad hoc committees, however they wanted to carry out some of the work responsibilities. And then there was a weird cost in their budget regarding travel for ground transportation to from the airport, and that was taken out. That was something that was accidentally put in. So
Okay.
it was a pretty clean proposal.
Okay. And recommendations now with those clarifications from staff
Yeah.
and then committee
Yeah.
is yes.
Right. So we actually had 4 evaluators. 1 was a council member, and then 3 were outside partners who participated in the outside review.
Okay, good. All right. So we had some other eyes on it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any further questions or comments for Marcy on this? Okay. Hearing none. And Lonnie, do you have anything to add? We good?
No, I think we're good. Marcy did a good job of covering it all.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, hearing no further comments or questions, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the collaborative approach to better respond to sexual violence against individuals with IDD from the UA Sonoran Center in the amount of $75,000. Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Bajette. So moved.
Thank you,
I got
Bajette.
it in first.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Bajette. Do I have a second?
JJ seconds.
Thank you, JJ. All those in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone abstaining? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. All right, our third and final proposal to review, Native Center for Disabilities. Okay, Ms. Marcy.
Okay, so there's a lot in this one. Their renewal was really nicely done. I have to tell you, it's hard to kind of get it was hard to get my mind wrapped around it sometime, I think in the second year, I think because Wendy left and it was kind of uncertain how they were going to proceed. They've done a really good job. And I went through this proposal again this morning to because I wanted to highlight a couple of things for the committee. This is their fourth year. So the ACL requires the council to address a targeted disparity activity as part of our work plan. And the targeted disparity is really their fifth objective as part of their overlook of everything regarding circle of Indigenous empowerment. So the target disparity that was approved by ACL was really to address Navajo youth, looking at employment outcomes and how to help them identify employment options on the Navajo reservation. So that was one component. What JC has done under the Circle of Indigenous Empowerment, which is the Native Center's one project under that big umbrella, is to expand this further into a lot of different activities. And so that's why I was like, wow, they're doing a lot other than just a targeted disparity, which was the initial kind of work around it that Wendy had started. Wendy did a lot of work, and it's nicely kind of laid out in where the summary says in this initial year, the second year, that was really around Wendy to start building relationships with our 22 tribal communities in Arizona to kind of look at the gaps and needs in the tribal communities for people with IDD and their families, and to better understand what sort of activities and what sort of awareness information they need, where are the gaps for services and supports. And so with Wendy, initially, they established presence in communities. I think she went to 13 or 14 different tribal communities in the first year and then part of the second year before she left. And so that really started the discussion for the Sonoran Center in this third year and fourth year to really move the ball forward in different areas. So their second year was around implementation and expansion of different trainings and webinars. They've done monthly webinars. They were doing talking circles, quarterly newsletters. And so in the third year, what they've done since Wendy left, there was a person that was hired, and then that person left after 6 months. They did hire a new program manager in January of 2024. So 3 months into the third year, they were able to bring a new person on. Her name is Agnes Atankai, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing her last name. She has helped to rebrand the Native Center and their Indigenous programs to the Circle of Indigenous Empowerment, CIE. And so it's more of a broad outreach with new partnerships and organizations, state agencies, and other tribal communities, and a national focus as well. For tribal education, disability, nonprofit, and advocacy programs, higher education institutions, and tribal community advocacy programs. They still do monthly webinars, presentations at local, state, national conferences, and then this past year they developed awareness resources on TBI, traumatic brain injury, college resource guides, and toolkits. So that's kind of the quick summary in the third year, but there's more expansion in that I'll talk about. In terms of the webinars, so the proposal talked about, we've done 11 webinars, yes, because when they submitted the proposal, they did 11, but I only have the data for the first 9 months until their final report comes in. 439 people have attended webinars that they've conducted up to 9 months. And in terms of quickly, the overview is 22 people with individuals with disabilities attended, 20 family members. But here's the key, 327 professionals have attended, and then 192 folks identified as tribal affiliated. they are doing a massive amount of outreach through national tribal communities. So you get folks from other states and their tribal communities attending these. And I think that's been the really benefit of this program. In terms of partnerships, if you look at their full proposal on pages 7 through 9, they list numerous partnerships for state agencies, and Agnes and their staff attending, whether it's quarterly meetings with agencies, Zoom meetings, monthly meetings, participating in reviews, all of that. If you just on the bottom of 7 and 8, you'll see that they are involved in a lot of different tribal committees under these departments, like Department of Health Services, Department of Access, Intertribal Council of Arizona. Agnes is really moving the ball forward to ensure that disability and intellectual developmental disabilities and families' needs are incorporated and not forgotten in their in these agencies. So that's been really apparent in this past third year. So going forward into the 4th year, they've broken out very nicely, and you'll see proposals on page 2 through 5. Let me say probably 5. Yeah. Key activities 1 through 4, and then the targeted disparity, which would continue as well. So I'm just going to highlight what the objective is, and then 1 or 2 activities under each objective. So the first one is to expand outreach and engage with 16 tribal education and health departments and 3 tribal colleges to identify disability and workforce needs. So they plan to expand the outreach and engagement to the additional tribal education and health departments and tribal colleges. Each of the 22 federal recognized tribes have tribal education and health departments, which oversee K through 12, adult education, higher education assistance, folk rehab, supportive employment, workforce investment opportunity, and mental health substance misuse programs. I don't know if that was a typo, it should be abuse programs. But they've identified 4 activities to start implementing or move further under the first objective. And I just want to highlight activity 2 and 3 is activity 2, which is really important, is the Intertribal Council of Arizona that they have a good partnership with. I don't believe the Navajo Nation participates on the Intertribal Council, but the other 21 tribes do. And so they continue to partner with the Intertribal Council, the Arizona Office of Indian Education, U of A's Native American Advance Initiatives and Research to identify tribal education summits, tribal education work groups and conferences and community events to present, share resources, obtain guidance of trainings and material development. I think that's a great way to continue to move forward with the outreach and engage tribal education and health departments, because tribal council can help move and put them in contact with other tribes on contacts on moving that forward. The third activity is collaborate with 3 tribal colleges to discuss support for Native students with disabilities and develop at least 1 educational resource. And so they will move forward on that. The 4th activity that I really thought was really important was coordinate inclusion of tribal partners in the planning, attendance, and sharing of tribal disability and employment models at the 21st Annual American Indian Disability Summit and the 4th Annual American Indian Disability Youth Summit in Phoenix. The second objective is strengthen Native youth and adult workforce resources and opportunities in 3 tribal communities. I'm just going to highlight activity 2 and 3 on page 3 of the proposal. It's the second activity is this is to focus and convene partners, build capacity, highlight practices-based tribal programs. The second activity is they will provide technical assistance to build capacity for transition services and apprenticeships, leading to meaningful employment in at least 3 tribal communities. And they've identified the Navajo, Tohono O'odham, and Hopi from year 3. They continue to work with these communities. They're going to continue to provide TA in that area. The third is to develop 3 case studies on innovative practice-based evidence of tribal, state, or tribal employment programs. The case studies will be shared with regional, state, and national partner programs and shared at the AI Disability Summit and posted on the Sonoran Center's and social media sites. So they have worked with this past year with Navajo Nation, the Tohono O'odham Nation, Hopi Tribes, Salt River, Pima Maricopa Indian Community, Gila River Indian Community, Pasco Yaqui, and White Mountain Apache Voc Rehab and affiliated schools to share resources under this objective. The third objective under this program is to expand monthly training and continuing education opportunities for key stakeholders to increase awareness on disabilities in Arizona tribal nations. So they will complete all 12 trainings and webinars that they've been doing online. Really, when this started was during the COVID pandemic and everything was online. So they have a really good social media and digital presence in tribal communities. So that's how they've been conducting a lot of their webinars is online. And they're going to continue that by focusing on still conducting the webinars, but reaching with key stakeholders to identify and develop relevant topics for the monthly webinar series. So every month, one training workshop will take place. They plan to work virtually with the Arizona Telemedicine Network through Indian Country, ECHO, or in-person community events, finalize trainings and flyer and registrations. They track all that information that they report to us. Activity 3, co-develop 5 educational outreach materials, identify partner meetings, and then create disabilities and indigenous communities course for health professional undergraduates and graduate students at U of A. So again, making sure that students understand the specific needs of tribal members and their communities with people with IDD. The fourth objective is to focus collaboration with state and national federal agencies and tribal programs to increase awareness on disability services for Arizona's tribal nations. Wendy kind of helped institute a collaboration or partnership with the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor's Division of Indian and Native American Programs, the NAP, and that still continues to this day. So in year 4, the program will collaborate with higher education institutions, federal agencies, and tribal programs to discuss and develop working groups and increase awareness of the needs to create a comprehensive network of services. The first activity is obviously to meet regularly, sometimes monthly or quarterly, with key federal programs. The NAP is one of them again, the Office of Disability Employment Policy, aimed at increasing awareness and disseminating resources and promoting inclusive employment policies and practices in Native American communities. And then the second activity is with the partnership under the Sonoran Center, the National Congress of American Indians Disability Policy Work Group, Consortia of Administrators for Native American Rehabilitation, Native American, obviously Native American Disability Law Center, which is a good partner with us that we work with up in Farmington, New Mexico, and NAU-IHD, all to discuss policies to promote comprehensive network of services that address diverse needs of Native individuals with disabilities. So that's 4 objectives. Again, I don't want to leave out the targeted disparity, which they are working around and still conducting work on Navajo Nation. And I do have actually numbers that they were able to do. So let me find that in my summary. So as I stated earlier, as a requirement, to date, they have worked with 6 Navajo youth to participate in work-based learning experiences at Window Rock High School, and 7 Navajo youth participated in the summer work program, earning the prevailing wage. So they plan to continue to partner with the tribal state voc rehab and employment supports, Office of Special Education and Rehab on the Navajo Nation to help provide transition services for Navajo youth who are interested in this part of the program with the targeted disparity. So the budget is $120,000, probably the largest one here. It has been consistent for the last 3 years, and this will go through 2026. So they will submit another renewal proposal a year from now for the 5th year and final year. Questions?
No, I'll ask you the same questions I did for the other 2, but boy, it sounds like they're doing some really good work, and I've got some plans.
Yeah,
And
the grants committee, I unfortunately thought we were running short on time. So I was like, they're doing 4 objectives and target disparity. I wasn't able to give a big overview, and I didn't realize we had an extra half hour. So we were short. I thought we were for an hour, but you know, that was my bad for not looking at the agenda closely enough. But no, there was there were no concerns. I mean, we worked through again the budget, and I talked to JC about this to make sure I was clear on a couple of items here, and she gave me the numbers for the targeted disparity. This contract's 3rd year does end on 9/30, so that's why you see, you know, which I think she had an XXX on the bottom of page 1. In year 3, XXX attended the monthly webinar. She clarified that for me, and so we do have a clean proposal. At least I do in my contract file. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So it was good. Yeah.
Yep. This is definitely something I would support if continue supporting as I have, if there's no further questions.
And I could tell you,
Yes.
I think from going from year 1 to year 3 with Agnes, who has been on board now for 9 months, who has taken this to a different level, the partnerships she has established is really going to bode well when this contract ends to continue the work. This is not going to go away in any way, shape, or form just because our funding ends. This is so embedded now in the community and with the Sonoran Center's commitment to continue to work on ensuring that our tribal nations and our partnerships with them continue. So that's
excellent.
the really benefit that I see that came out of it.
Oh yeah. Well, and spending all the money and all the time and individuals that invest to know that something ends is really frustrating. So that's great that it looks like it's going to continue. So I think that's great. Are there any other comments or questions for Lonnie or Marcy on this? Marcy mostly, I guess.
I don't have a question, but just a comment. Marcy, I thank you so much for your comprehensive description of these. That's a lot. That's a lot of information. You do such a good job of filtering it down for us. I appreciate that so much. Just wanted to make a comment that one of the things that we do hear consistently from Native families that we serve is so many times that supports are front loaded and then they just diminish. And they're very hesitant to build partnerships because of that. And so I'm really excited about hearing, you know, the robust shoring up of this work. I think it's so awesome. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Well, if you're not tied in with their program, Jana, certainly I know JC would be interested to snatch you up and have you, you know, do introductions with Agnes, so that RSK obviously has a big presence in the community. We want to make sure that, you know, you can help identify any areas or share information. So we can make that happen.
Thanks. Marcy.
Yes, it is. It's very hard to make inroads with tribal communities. Very hard. And I think you just have to have a continual presence. And what I said to JC, I do want to share this because that's a good point. I think it's really important to know is they had to reestablish communication with many of the tribes because there was that lull with the previous administrator they hired, who, and during COVID, people were hesitant to meet, obviously in person, but sometimes you need to. And I think until the pandemic was under control, that had to happen before physically you go in the communities and you're able to meet with folks. And it's really important to establish that. And it's the continual presence that they've done online and in person. And they had to reestablish connections when Agnes came on board, because there was a period of time that things just kind of like the resources and the trainings didn't, but their presence, and you have to have a presence. So thank you for that.
Jana, I hope you take her up on that. Connect with. Yep, that would be terrific. So, okay, that's some exciting stuff. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the collaborative approach to better respond to sexual violence against. Nope, sorry, wrong one. Hey, look what I have, glasses. Hey, there we are. Native Center for Disabilities, Year 4. It's UA Sonoran Center. Sorry about that. and the amount of $120,000. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Jana. Do I have a second?
This is Kelly. I'll second. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone abstaining? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Yay, those will go through to full council next week. Okay. All right. Agenda item F, our full council meeting agenda. I don't know if you guys had a few to look at it. It looks real similar to what we did today, with the exception of if you want to go down our committee updates, I think. Okay, keep going there. I was going to ask if we did have Lynn coming in. All right, we do have a presentation from Lynn Tomasa on her sexual violence told through lived experience of survivors, families, and professionals. That will be really interesting. Any comments, John or staff, on the agenda?
The only thing I would note is up toward the top under the executive director's report, we will be taking a formal vote on the budget, which was presented today. So we will be asking for council approval of that for next year. Otherwise, as you point out, we have a couple of guest presentations, one from Lynn on her project, which was a long time in the making and has already proved to be immensely valuable. And then we're also going to have the executive director of the Arizona ABLE program give an update on that program, and more specifically, I think, talk about how we as a council, that is, we as staff and as council members, can do more to promote adoption of ABLE accounts around the state of Arizona. Jason was for a long time a member of the ABLE Advisory Committee. He, I think, has turned out of that role now, but he remains very, very involved in the ABLE program and has quite a lot of expertise around ABLE. He's been doing presentations with Brittany, the executive director, for several years and continues to do that. We are trying to promote adoption of that program because, first of all, it's a tremendous tool for people who have disabilities to do some financial planning and some financial management, and to live a better life, really, than they would be able to live if they were solely reliant upon public benefits. But I asked Brittany to help us understand how we can do more to promote it and how we can do more to educate our communities around the state about it. So I think it's going to be a very important presentation, and I hope you all find it to be worthwhile.
Well, I will be there for sure. So I hope so too. I'm looking forward to both of those. I'm good with this agenda. I hope the rest are. Just to comment, John, something you and I have discussed, because there's been a little push from ACL. In our upcoming agendas for executive and then for full council, we need to begin discussing term limits and what that's going to look like. So, yes, any thoughts? I just want to put it up and put it out on everybody's radar that that's something that we're going to need to put on a future agenda for us to talk about. Term limits for council members. So, okay.
Yeah, and that that goes to the issue of some bylaws changes, because currently the bylaws do not establish any term limits for council members. So, Melissa, you and I have already talked about this a little bit, but I think we're going to need to involve some additional council members in the process of making adjustments to our existing bylaws so that they reflect both changes to the term limit issue and perhaps some other changes as well. Yeah.
And that may involve an ad hoc committee or something like that. So, okay, just want to kind of put it on your radar. That's coming up at some point. Okay, we are all good. So no more votes. Does anybody have any announcements that they need to make? Would like to make?
This is JJ. I just have a couple quick ones. I wanted to thank the council. Our SEEP project is coming to the end at the end of the month, and I'll send you all an email about kind of expending the funds, but more importantly, thank you for the opportunity to do the work. And I wanted to specifically mention our Four Corners event that took place. That was a specific request from the council, and it was really successful. We were able to get folks from all of the states of the Four Corners. And then I wanted to share that I'm having a follow-up meeting with my peers and the P&A directors from the 4 states to continue it for 25. So we haven't selected a date yet, but I think you all had a request and started a good thing. And so we're going to continue a Four Corners type event. It might focus on a number of areas, not just special education, just as this last one did. So just wanted to share that and thank you all for that opportunity to start that work. And we're going to continue that into our next year. And then last but certainly not least, wanted to also let you know that DRAZ, formerly ACDL, is celebrating its 30-year anniversary event on November 1st. Some of you have got the invite. If any of you also want the invitation, please let me know. Looking for folks to come out and celebrate, sponsor if you can, or if you have any items that you'd like to donate to. We're going to have a silent auction, some food, some drinks, and some music. Should be a nice time to get together with folks. We're honoring Phil Pangrazio, Sherry Collins, and Claire Adams as our 3 honorees for the day. So really excited about that and hope to see some of you, if not all of you, there.
Thank you, JJ.
Sure.
Some good stuff. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, hearing nothing else, I'm going to move on to agenda item H, our call to the public. I don't know any public members on here today. So moving on to our final and last, we're going to adjourn for the day. Thank you so much for your time and input. And don't forget, we do have a full council meeting next Friday, the 20th at 10 a.m. And I won't show up an hour early like I have done in the past, panicking. I don't have the link. Okay. All right. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for being here. And
Thank you
welcome.
all.
Yep. Welcome back, John. John, can you hang on for just a minute before you get off? Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you
Take
all.
care. Bye.
Bye. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Yay. Look at that.